migratory crisis across Latin America is reaching breaking point in Colombia, sparking a humanitarian crisis in the northwestern department of Antioquia. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea and South Korea have restored cross-border communications in a move that the two countries said was part of an effort to rebuild trust. The Tunisian president sacked the defence minister on Monday, a day after ousting the prime minister and suspending parliament in what the country's biggest political party decried as a coup. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. The migratory crisis across Latin America is reaching breaking point in Colombia, sparking a humanitarian crisis in the northwestern department of Antioquia. Some 10,000 people hoping to move on to Panama to eventually reach the United States are now gathered in the municipality of Uraba, where regional authorities stress they're unable to meet their needs in the face of a complete lack of state support. Meanwhile, local media have denounced that some business sectors are taking advantage of the migrants, charging them more for goods. Many have already paid huge sums to traffickers who then abandon them to their fate. The opposition St. Lucia Labour Party secured a landslide victory in Monday's general elections. Analysts said voters had expressed their frustration at the ballot box by removing the Alan Chastanet government after a 5-year term in office. In addition, history was made as voters elected 2 independent candidates to the 17-member lower house of parliament, among them former Prime Minister Stephenson King, who quit the ruling United Workers' Party to contest the Castries North constituency, which he has been representing for nearly 3 decades.
We shall put the interests of St. Lucians and St. Lucia first. When you go to the polls on 26 July 2021, vote the St. Lucia Labour Party. We are ready. The SLP is ready. We have faith that the people...
French authorities said Tuesday they're investigating a petrol bomb attack on the Cuban embassy in Paris. The Paris prosecutor's office said an investigation is underway. No one has been arrested or claimed responsibility, police said. The Cuban Foreign Ministry announced that 3 Molotov cocktails were thrown at the building on Monday night, with 2 hitting the embassy and sparking a fire. Cuban diplomats extinguished the blaze as French firefighters and police arrived at the scene. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel denounced the attack on Twitter, stressing that so-called peaceful protesters, with the encouragement of the anti-Cuba campaigns generated in Washington, are now conducting acts of terrorism against Cuban embassies. The French government condemned the attack against the Cuban embassy in Paris on Monday night. There are no casualties reported, although there was material damage to the facility. The French Foreign Ministry assured that security is reinforced at the diplomatic mission. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez described the incident as a terrorist attack. He stressed that the continuous U.S. campaigns against Cuba encourage this type of violent act by extremists. Cuban authorities have denounced the use of information and communication technologies to incite criminal and terrorist acts in the country, including cyber attacks on government sites and media outlets with the backing of the United States government. In a letter to the General Secretariat of the International Telecommunication Union, the Cuban Ministry of Communications denounced that such hostile acts are contrary to the principles set forth by the United Nations agency. Havana emphasized that the United States is promoting an international campaign of the use of social media networks to promote hate speech, incitement to violence, subversion, the dissemination of fake news and the distortion of Cuba's reality for political purposes and as a pretext for further sanctions and military intervention. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador spoke out against the coercive measures imposed against Cuba for the last 60 years. The president announced the U.S. blockade and reiterated the solidarity of the people of Mexico with the island. He also announced that the first shipment of humanitarian aid to Cuba, including food and medical supplies, set their sail this Tuesday from Veracruz, and a second ship on Wednesday. López Obrador has called on other nations to go further than simply denouncing the US blockade, as they do at the United Nations each year, and turn this expression into concrete support for Cuba.
As we all know, there is a delicate situation in Cuba because they are suffering from a blockade. This is something that I consider inhumane because it is an extreme measure. It is like a medieval action. It is a sign of a great backwardness in foreign policy.
Peru is preparing for the inauguration of President-elect Pedro Castillo after a drawn-out electoral process, which many denounce as a bid to undermine the incoming leader. Heads of state and government are arriving in the country to attend the inauguration on Wednesday and other protocol events. The ceremony will coincide with the 200th anniversary of Peru's independence. Leaders and dignitaries from Ecuador, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Spain and other countries are set to attend. Far-right losing candidate Keiko Fujimori finally conceded defeat last week after various manoeuvres to try and prevent Castillo from taking office. Political and social movements in El Salvador mobilized on Tuesday in solidarity with former officials detained by President Nayib Bukele's government, denouncing what they described as political persecution. Protests took place after the Attorney General's office filed proceedings on Sunday against 10 former officials of the administration of former President Mauricio Funes. The prosecutor of the case said that the individuals are accused of illicit enrichment, embezzlement and money laundering. Those accused include former President Salvador Sánchez Cerén, who served as Vice President under Funes. The leadership of the Faribundo Martí National Liberation Front said that the arrests of no president in the last 30 years go beyond the framework of the law, are an attack on the party, and described the accused as political prisoners. Chile's Congress is advancing in a discussion of the Equal Marriage Bill promoted by progressive forces of the country. The Constitution, Legislation and Justice Committee of the lower house continues pending debates with the utmost urgency. The president of the committee declared that they hope to have processed the bill in full by the end of the year. For its part, the homosexual movement of integration and liberation called on Congress members to speed up the process, considering it a historical debt of the Chilean state with same-sex couples and homoparental families. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea and South Korea have restored cross-border communications just over a year since they were cut off, in a surprise move that the two countries said was part of an effort to rebuild trust. The joint announcement on Tuesday, which coincided with the anniversary of the end of the Korean War, was the first positive development since a series of summits between DPRK leader Kim Jong-un and the South's President Moon Jae-in in 2018 failed to achieve any significant breakthrough. The two sides revealed that Kim and Moon had exchanged a series of letters since April in which they agreed that re-establishing hotlines would be a productive first step in rebooting relations between the two nations. High-level talks between China and the United States on Monday highlighted their differences and the continued lack of will on the part of the US to advance relations. Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Xi Feng said during talks with US Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman that the China-US relationship is now in a stalemate and faces serious difficulties. He noted this is fundamentally because some Americans portray China as an imagined enemy. The Chinese official stressed that mutual trust and mutual benefit should be the preconditions for bilateral cooperation and that both powers should seek common ground.
In fact, China has been playing responsible and constructive the premise of mutual benefit and on the necessary condition of a good atmosphere of bilateral relations. The US should adopt a correct view of cooperation. It simply won't work when the US seeks cooperation with China while harming China's interests at the same time.
The violent attacks of January 6 on the US Capitol are being investigated by a committee. The first of the hearings on Tuesday focused on the testimonies of the officers attacked by rioters. According to the accusations, the officers were subject to attacks with chemical irritants, trampling and beatings. The Trump-supporting rioters shouted racial slurs and used the officers' own weapons against them. The judiciary has declared the importance of the case for democratic order and application of the law. However, partisan tensions are rising, with Republicans bluntly denying the attacks and claiming the motivation of the case to be that of a political move, while Democrats are using the situation to gain supporters by exploiting the shocking events that unfolded at the beginning of the year. The Vatican has begun hearings in a fraud trial described as historic relating to corruption at the highest levels of the Catholic Church. Giovanni Angelo Beccui, once one of the Pope's most influential advisors and the all-powerful head of the Vatican's saint-making office, becomes the first cardinal in modern history to stand trial, accused of criminal offences inside the Holy See. Alongside him, 9 others are accused, facing charges of embezzlement, money laundering, fraud and abuse of power, all related to the investment of €350 million in a property in the UK capital, London. The alleged graft is said to have enraged Pope Francis, who's vowed all-out war on corruption and has increased oversight of the Vatican's finances, dogged for decades by scandal. Tuesday's hearing is expected to be purely technical, and the trial may be adjourned to after the summer break. The head of the World Health Organization has welcomed news that Germany's biotech company will start trialling a malaria vaccine next year using breakthrough technology. The project's backed by the WHO, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the European Union.
High efficacy of 2 mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 have shown the world just how powerful this technology could be against many diseases, including malaria. The pandemic has also demonstrated the urgent need to invest in scaling up local production capacity, especially in Africa. We still have a very long road to travel, but this is an ambitious and purposeful stride down that road. WHO remains committed to working with you, our partners, until we reach our destination, a world free of malaria.
At least 9 cities in Brazil have suspended the application of the first dose of COVID-19 vaccines due to a lack of supplies. Among the cities that stopped the immunisation are Belém, João Pessoa and Rio de Janeiro. Local authorities stated that the measure comes in response to delays in the delivery of vaccines by the Ministry of Health. Minister Marcelo Queiroga announced that the distribution of more than 10 million vaccine doses has begun and shrugged off criticism over the delays in a country that has recorded the second highest COVID-19 death toll in the world and the third highest number of cases, and been plagued with scandals surrounding the purchase of vaccines. Argentina's government continues negotiations to secure COVID-19 vaccines. The health minister announced that deals have been reached with the US laboratory Pfizer, as well as with the Chinese laboratory CanSino for millions of doses.
Yesterday, I signed a binding agreement with the laboratory Pfizer. It is a binding agreement for 20 million doses of vaccines during 2021. Yesterday, I finally signed the payment for the first 200,000 doses of the CanSino vaccine of the 5.4 million dose contract, also for 2021.
The Japanese capital, currently hosting the 2020 Olympic Games, has reported its highest daily figure of COVID-19 cases to date. The latest figure of over 2,800 surpasses the previous record set on January 7th. The news comes in the midst of a fourth state of emergency set to be enforced in Tokyo until just before the Paralympics start in late August. Experts have warned that the more contagious Delta variant could cause a surge during the Games, whose opening ceremony took place on Friday. India registered less than 30,000 new coronavirus infections for the first time since March this Tuesday, when the second wave of the virus sparked a health crisis. India has now reported almost 31.5 million COVID-19 cases and over 400,000 deaths. However, numerous experts have pointed out that the true numbers, especially of COVID-19 related deaths, are likely several times higher than those recorded by the authorities. According to a study by the Centre for Global Development published last week on excess mortality during the pandemic, the country has seen as many as 5 million COVID-19 deaths. At the same time, vaccine stocks remain a problematic issue. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Tunisian President Kais Saied sacked the defence minister on Monday, a day after ousting the Prime Minister and suspending Parliament in what the country's biggest political party decried as a coup. Street clashes erupted Monday outside the army-barricaded Parliament after Saied dismissed Prime Minister Hichem Mechichi and ordered Parliament closed for 30 days. In the afternoon hours, the presidency announced the dismissals of both the Defence Minister and the acting Justice Minister. The move plunges the North African nation into constitutional crisis in the midst of a pandemic.
I have taken responsibility. I am taking a historic responsibility. Those who claim this matter is related to a coup need to revise their lessons in the constitution.
And residents in the Tunisian capital Tunis offered mixed reactions to the move by President Kais Saied to freeze parliament and sack government ministers.
The people see that Kais Saied wants to become a dictator and behave against the revolution. Of course the people will rise up against him and overthrow him. We are a bit scared of what may happen and the return of Ben Ali era. Now there is only one power. It is the president who holds the executive and judicial power. It is really a rescue operation because lately all Tunisians have seen that the economic and social situation has deteriorated a lot under the government's policies that have been in place for years and that have not met the expectations of the people. That's why the time has come for change.
Hopefully everything will go well. I hope the future will be good. He has taken a good step, a very positive one, and I hope that the future will get better and better.
The main party in the Tunisian parliament, the Ennahda movement, said Tuesday it's ready to hold early elections to protect democracy and avoid an autocratic regime. In this context, the Russian Foreign Ministry also said Tuesday it hopes that Tunisia's internal contradictions will be resolved within the legal framework. For its part, the United States expressed its concern over the dismissal of Prime Minister Mechichi. Moreover, France announced that it hopes government institutions will return to their usual work as soon as possible to address the health, economic and social crisis the country is experiencing. Lebanon's new Prime Minister-designate Najib Mikati set about trying to form a long-awaited cabinet on Tuesday as the economic crisis continues. The billionaire politician, already twice having served as Prime Minister, was designated on Monday, days after Said Hariri threw in the towel. The previous government of Hassan Diab resigned following the deadly port explosion in Beirut last August, and since the country has seen a worsening economic crisis and political deadlock. The institutional vacuum is holding up a potential international financial rescue plan for Lebanon, which the World Bank has described as suffering one of the world's worst crises since the mid-19th century. The designation of 65-year-old Mikati, Lebanon's richest man, and to many a symbol of its corrupt oligarchy, was met with general skepticism.
It's not tied to one person, it's tied to something larger. In the end, Najib Mikati is the result of a settlement, a result of the composition of the country's ruling class. He is a thief. He is like all the others who have looted the country. The same people have been in power for 40 to 50 years. They still steal. Najib Mikati was prime minister before. What did he do? What did he change? Tell me, what did he change? We've tried Najib Mikati before and his government was a failure. It was based on quotas. It brought no hope to Lebanon. I don't believe any government in this current era can succeed. We are going towards further deterioration and the hardest days the Lebanese people have ever faced.
People in the northern Ethiopian region of Tigray are starving as the UN World Food Programme confirmed it will be out of supplies in a few days. The executive director of the programme, David Beasley, tweeted that 100 trucks of food a day are required to serve the population the agency has set out to feed in Tigray, where hundreds of thousands of people face the world's worst famine crisis in a decade. He stressed that 170 trucks of food and other supplies have been blocked in the neighbouring region of Afar. International pressure is again rising on Ethiopia's government to end the conflict it launched in November and ensure aid reaches the region. Five million displaced Syrians have returned to their homes thanks to the improved security situation in the country, still suffering from foreign interference and terrorist groups. The figure was revealed during a joint Syrian-Russian meeting in Damascus on Monday, aimed at monitoring the results of the international conference on the return of Syrian refugees held in November 2020. During the meeting, it was reiterated that the Syrian government will continue to take all measures to facilitate the return of the displaced and ensure the conditions for them to lead a dignified life. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. Plus, you can catch up on our shows on our YouTube channel. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.